There is a forest in British Columbia, Canada, and underneath it is the internet. Not metaphorically, an actual network. Hundreds of kilometers of fungal threads, connecting every tree in the forest to every other tree, passing nutrients and passing water, passing chemical signals that scientists now believe carry something very close to information. This is not fringe science. This was published in Nature and almost completely ignored by the mainstream conversation about what life actually is. Let's back this up. In 1997, a forest ecologist named Suzanne Simard was doing something that her colleagues thought was borderline insane. She was injecting radioactive carbon into trees and watching where it went. What she found stopped her cold. The carbon didn't stay in the trees she injected, it moved through the soil, through fungal threads, into the roots of neighbouring trees. Different species of trees, trees that had no business sharing anything. She called it the Wood Wide Web, and it changed everything we thought we knew about forests. Trees compete, survival of the fittest. Each tree fighting for light, water, and nutrients. A battlefield disguised as a forest. Here is what Simard found instead. Trees cooperate. Mother trees, the oldest ones, the largest trees in the forest, act as hubs, like routers in a network, sending carbon and nutrients to younger, smaller trees, especially their own seedlings. She found out that mother trees could recognize their own kin, their own offspring, and then send more nutrients. Can you believe that? A tree recognizing its own children and then feeding them preferentially through an underground network. And it gets stranger. When a tree is under attack from insects, from disease, it sends chemical warnings through the network. And then they begin to produce defense chemicals before the attack even reaches them. They're warning each other. When a tree is dying, it doesn't hoard what it has left. It dumps its remaining carbon and nutrients into the network, a final act of contribution to the forest it lived in. The Hadza people of Tanzania, the indigenous people of the Pacific Northwest, ancient cultures all over the world talked about forests as living, breathing, communicating beings, and they were just laughed at for centuries. Turns out they were just describing what they observed. We have been logging old growth forests for 200 years, and the first thing we target, the biggest, oldest trees. The mother hub trees, the ones running the entire network. And when you remove a mother tree, you don't just lose a tree, you collapse the network around it. Younger trees lose their connection, their nutrient supply, and their warning system. We've literally been logging the brain of the forest and calling it timber. Suzanne spent decades fighting to be taken seriously. But her research was dismissed, her funding was cut, and she was told that forests don't work that way. But she kept going. Her book, Finding the Mother Tree, came out in 2021. Her TED Talk has over 5 million views. And the scientific community has slowly, reluctantly started to catch up. Peter, a German forester, wrote The Hidden Life of Trees. He documented trees that had been dead for centuries. No leaves, no photosynthesis, no way to produce food. And they were still alive at the stump. They were being kept alive by neighbouring trees feeding them throughout the root network, keeping their dead neighbour alive for centuries. Philosopher and biologist Andreas Weber has argued that what we are witnessing is not just communication. It looks something more like intention, like they care for one another. We do not have a word in Western science for what is actually happening, because Western science has built itself upon the idea that only humans have inner lives, and that nature is just a machine. Trees are just lumber waiting to happen. But the Wood Wide Web doesn't care what we call it. It was there before we arrived, and it will be there after we leave, running its ancient internet beneath every forest on Earth, connecting, warning, feeding, and mourning. The forest isn't just a collection of individual trees, and it never was. It's one big, beautiful organism, and we've been tearing it apart piece by piece for 200 years without ever stopping to ask, can the forest feel? Time to rethink. If you have anything you would like us to cover, please drop it in the comments below.